The emergency sirens of Station Omega-7 screamed through the corridors like dying banshees. Commander Zara Chen pressed her palm against the cold metal wall, feeling the vibrations of distant explosions ripple through the station's superstructure. Through the massive viewport of the command center, she could see the remnants of what had once been the most powerful military alliance in known space. The Galactic Defense Force fleet was dying. Massive alien ships, each the size of a small moon, drifted like funeral pyres against the star-scattered void. Their hulls bore the proud insignias of a dozen different species, the crystal formations of the Crystalline Collective, the biomechanical curves of the Zephyrian Empire, the geometric perfection of the Andromedian Republic. Now those same ships leaked atmosphere and debris, their crews either dead or fleeing in whatever escape pods they could find. "Status report," Chen commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. The bridge crew, a mixture of humans and aliens, worked frantically at their stations. 70% of the Allied fleet is either destroyed or disabled, reported Lieutenant Torres, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. The Nexari forces are advancing on all fronts. Our defensive lines have completely collapsed. Chen nodded grimly. The Nexari had appeared from the void 6 months ago, their technology unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They didn't just destroy their enemies, they consumed them, breaking down matter itself and converting it into more of their twisted biomechanical horrors. Every world they conquered became a factory for their endless war machine. "What about evacuation protocols?" Chen asked. "The Zephyrian command ship has already jumped to hyperspace," Torres replied, her voice carrying a hint of disgust. "The Crystalline Collective is requesting immediate extraction for their remaining vessels. The Andromedians." She paused, checking her readings. The Andromedians are arguing about whether retreat violates their honor codes. A new voice cut through the chatter. "They're all running." Chen turned to see Captain Marcus Webb emerging from the tactical center, his weathered face grim. Webb had been fighting in space longer than most species had been traveling between stars. His gray hair was disheveled, his uniform scorched from a recent battle, but his eyes burned with familiar intensity. "Sir?" Chen asked. "Every single one of our glorious allies is preparing to cut and run," Webb continued, moving to the main display. "The Zephyrians have already abandoned 3 systems. The Crystallines are evacuating their core worlds. Even the proud Andromedians are conducting strategic withdrawals, which is fancy talk for running with their tails between their legs." The bridge fell silent except for the continued wailing of alarms. Through the viewport, another Allied ship exploded in a brilliant flash of white light, briefly illuminating the geometric nightmare of an approaching Nexari destroyer. "What are your orders, Commander?" Torres asked quietly. Chen stared at the tactical display, watching red icons representing Nexari forces advance like a plague across the star map. Behind them, entire solar systems went dark. Billions of lives snuffed out or worse, converted into more fuel for the Nexari war machine. The combined might of 12 species, accumulated over thousands of years of civilization, was crumbling in a matter of months. But there was something the other species didn't understand about humans. Something they had never fully grasped despite fighting alongside them for decades. "Patch me through to all remaining human vessels," Chen ordered. "Ma'am, that's only 47 ships out of the original 3,000, Torres warned. "Patch me through," Chen repeated. The communications array hummed to life, and Chen's image appeared on screens throughout the scattered remnants of humanity's space fleet. She could see the faces looking back at her, tired, bloodied, but not broken. Engineers from Mars, miners from the asteroid belt, soldiers from Earth's moon colonies. Humans who had grown up among the stars but had never forgotten where they came from. "This is Commander Chen of the Terran Defense Force," she began. "By now you've all seen the tactical situation. The Galactic Defense Force is in full retreat. Our alien allies are abandoning the fight. High Command is recommending immediate evacuation to the Outer Rim territories." She paused, letting that sink in. Around her, the bridge crew watched intently. "But we're not going to do that," Chen continued, her voice gaining strength. "We're humans. We don't run when things get tough. We don't abandon our responsibilities when the odds turn against us. For the past 6 months, we've been fighting as part of someone else's army, following someone else's strategies, adhering to someone else's rules of engagement. On the tactical display, more Allied ships winked out of existence. "Well, now it's just us," Chen said, a slight smile playing at her lips. "And that means we fight like humans. No more committee decisions. No more diplomatic constraints. No more worrying about what our allies think of our methods. The galaxy is about to learn what we're really capable of when the leash comes off." Captain Webb stepped forward. "Ma'am, with respect, 47 ships against the entire Nexari armada? Even with human tactics, the mathematics are." "The mathematics don't account for human stubbornness, Captain," Chen interrupted. "Or human ingenuity. Or the simple fact that we've been holding back for 6 months, trying to play nice with species who think war is some kind of gentleman's game." She turned back to the communications array. "All ships are to regroup at Rally Point Delta. We're implementing Operation Berserker." A murmur of surprise rippled through the bridge. Operation Berserker was a contingency plan that had been developed early in the war but never implemented due to objections from Allied command. It involved tactics that most species considered barbaric, methods of warfare that violated several interspecies treaties. "Ma'am," Torres said carefully, "Operation Berserker has been classified as a war crime by the Galactic Council." "The Galactic Council just ran away," Chen replied flatly. "Besides, you can't commit war crimes against a species that's trying to extinct all sentient life in the galaxy." On the viewscreen, the first human ships were already beginning to move, breaking away from the fleeing alien vessels and forming up in combat formations that no other species would recognize. Where alien military doctrine emphasized preservation of resources and graduated response, human tactics were built around controlled aggression and acceptable losses. "Torres, I want you to contact every mining operation, freight hauler, and independent trader in this sector," Chen ordered. "Tell them we're offering standard military rates for anyone willing to volunteer for combat operations." "Commander, civilian ships aren't equipped for battle against Nexari forces," Webb protested. "No, but they're equipped for ramming," Chen replied. "And their crews know how to handle explosives. The Nexari have been winning because they fight like a force of nature, unstoppable, inevitable. They've been crushing organized military resistance because our alien friends fight like they're trying to minimize damage to their precious ships and preserve their carefully trained crews." She gestured at the viewport, where Nexari vessels were systematically hunting down the last fleeing Allied ships. "But humans don't fight to preserve our equipment. We fight to win. And if that means turning a cargo hauler into a guided missile, then that's what we do." The transformation was already beginning. Across the human fleet, crews were stripping non-essential systems and rerouting power to weapons and shields. Civilian vessels were being hastily retrofitted with military-grade explosives. Mining ships designed to crack asteroids were loading their cargo holds with improvised warheads. "The Nexari have been studying our alien allies' tactics for months," Chen continued, addressing the growing fleet of human vessels. "They know how Zephyrian bioships behave in combat. They've adapted to crystalline energy weapons. They've countered Andromedan battle formations. But they've never fought humans alone. They've never faced an enemy that considers ramming speed a valid tactical option." A new contact appeared on the tactical display, a massive Nexari command ship, easily 3 times the size of any human vessel. Its surface writhed with biomechanical components that seemed to pulse with malevolent life. "There," Chen pointed. "That's our primary target. The ship that's been coordinating the assault on this sector. Take it down, and we disrupt their entire battle network." "Ma'am, that vessel has more firepower than our entire remaining fleet," Torres warned. "Probably," Chen agreed. "But it's also too big to dodge." "Webb, how many mining charges do we have in the civilian ships?" "Approximately 400 fusion-based excavation charges, plus whatever military ordnance we have left," Webb replied, checking his tablet. "But, Commander, even if we could get close enough." "We're not going to get close," Chen interrupted. "We're going to ram it. The Nexari expect us to engage at long range like civilized species. They expect us to try to preserve our ships and minimize casualties. They expect us to fight like every other species they've encountered." She turned to address the communications array one final time. All ships, this is Commander Chen. You've all heard the plan. I won't lie to you, most of us probably won't survive the next hour. The odds are against us. The enemy has superior numbers, superior technology, and superior firepower. By any rational analysis, we should retreat and regroup with the alien forces at the galactic rim. Around the bridge, her crew listened intently. On screens throughout the fleet, human faces stared back with expressions of grim determination. But humans have never been particularly rational, Chen continued. We're the species that looked at fire and decided to domesticate it. We're the ones who saw an ocean and built ships to cross it. We stared up at the stars and decided they belonged to us. And now we're going to show this galaxy what that kind of crazy determination looks like when it's backed into a corner. The first Nexari attack wave was approaching, their biomechanical ships moving in perfect formation like a school of predatory fish. Energy readings spiked as they prepared to open fire. For 6 months, we've been trying to save the galaxy, Chen said, her voice carrying clearly across the human fleet. Now we're going to avenge it. All ships, weapons free. Ramming speed. Show them what humans do when the universe decides to pick a fight. The response was immediate. 47 human ships, ranging from massive dreadnoughts to converted cargo haulers, accelerated toward the Nexari fleet. No careful positioning. No elaborate tactical maneuvers. Just pure, aggressive determination. The Nexari opened fire first, their energy weapons tearing through space like purple lightning. 2 human ships died instantly, their hulls vaporizing under the alien assault. But the remaining ships kept coming, their crews shouting battle cries in a dozen different languages as they charged toward certain death. This is insane, Torres muttered, gripping her console as the station shook under Nexari fire. No, Webb corrected, watching the tactical display with professional interest. This is human. The first collision came 60 seconds later. A converted mining vessel, its cargo hold packed with fusion charges, slammed into the side of a Nexari destroyer at full acceleration. The explosion lit up local space like a miniature sun, and, when the light faded, both ships were gone. But the human assault was just beginning. Ship after ship crashed into the Nexari formation, each impact accompanied by massive explosions as fusion charges and military ordnance detonated. The alien vessels, designed for energy-based combat, had no defense against kinetic impacts delivered at relativistic speeds. By all the burning moons of Zephyr, whispered Lieutenant Torres, watching in amazement. They're actually hurting them. The Nexari command ship, massive and imposing, found itself suddenly under direct assault as 3 human ships bore down on it simultaneously. Its defensive systems, designed to deflect energy weapons and intercept missiles, proved useless against ships being used as projectiles. The first impact sent ripples across the biomechanical hull. The second opened a massive breach in the command section. The third, a freight hauler loaded with military-grade explosives, penetrated deep into the ship's core before detonating. The command ship didn't just explode, it imploded, its biomechanical systems collapsing in on themselves as the carefully maintained energy matrix that held it together was disrupted. Secondary explosions rippled outward as smaller Nexari vessels, suddenly, cut off from their command network, began to malfunction. Impossible, Torres breathed. They're actually winning. But the victory came at a price. Of the 47 human ships that had begun the assault, only 12 remained functional. The space around Station Omega-7 was littered with debris from both human and Nexari vessels. Damage report, Chen commanded. Nexari attack force is in full retreat, Torres replied, her voice filled with amazement. Their command structure in this sector has completely collapsed. Long-range sensors show them falling back toward the galactic core. Chen nodded, but her expression remained grim. How many human ships are still combat capable? 12, ma'am. But several are heavily damaged. And the alien evacuation? Complete. The last Zephyrian vessel jumped to hyperspace 3 minutes ago. Chen stared at the tactical display, where red icons representing Nexari forces were indeed pulling back. For the first time in months, the direction of retreat was away from human space, not toward it. Ma'am, Webb said quietly, we should probably consider evacuation ourselves. This was just one attack force. The main Nexari Armada is about to learn that they picked the wrong species to extinct, Chen interrupted. Torres, open a channel to Earth Command. Ma'am, Earth Command was evacuated to the Outer Rim colonies 6 days ago. Then, patch me through to whoever's in charge out there, Chen ordered. It's time to let them know that the war just changed. As the communication array crackled to life, Chen turned back to the viewport. In the distance, she could see the lights of human ships regrouping, preparing for the next assault. They were battered, outnumbered, and technically outgunned. But they were still there, still fighting, still refusing to give up. This is Commander Chen at Station Omega 7, she said into the communicator. The Galactic Defense Force has been routed. All alien allies have evacuated. But we've just proven something important: the Nexari can be beaten. They can bleed. They can die. And we're going to teach them what happens when they threaten humanity's home. She paused, looking at the faces of her crew, seeing the same determination that had just turned a hopeless battle into an unexpected victory. Send a message to every human settlement, every colony, every outpost from here to the Galactic Rim, she continued. Tell them the aliens have given up, but we haven't. Tell them to prepare for war, not the careful, limited conflict we've been fighting as part of someone else's army, but the kind of total war that humans wage when our survival is at stake. Through the viewport, more Nexari ships appeared at the edge of sensor range, probing for weaknesses in the human position. But, this time, they approached cautiously, their formations scattered and uncertain. They're afraid, Webb observed with satisfaction. For the first time since this war began, they're actually afraid. Chen smiled grimly. Good. Fear is the beginning of wisdom. And they're about to get a very thorough education in why you don't threaten humanity's children. The stage was set. The Galactic Defense Force had fallen, but humanity stood alone against the darkness. And, for the first time since the Nexari had emerged from the void, the outcome was no longer certain. The Terran resurgence 3 weeks after the Battle of Omega 7, the galaxy had learned a new word: impossible. The Nexari, who had swept through civilized space like a cosmic plague, had been stopped. Not slowed, not delayed, stopped cold by a species that every other galactic civilization had considered moderately useful but ultimately expendable. The shockwaves from that realization rippled through both the retreating alien fleets and the advancing Nexari armada. Admiral Sarah Mitchell stood in the primary command center of New Geneva Station, humanity's largest military installation in the Alpha Centauri system. The station had been built during the early years of human expansion, back when humanity was still trying to prove itself worthy of galactic citizenship. Now it served as the headquarters for something no alien species had ever seen before: a purely human war effort. Status report, Mitchell commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent the last 3 weeks rebuilding humanity's military doctrine from the ground up. Recruitment is exceeding all projections, reported Colonel Davis, a thin man with premature gray hair and the intense focus of someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. We've had over 2 million volunteers respond to the general mobilization call. Every human settlement from the inner worlds to the frontier colonies is contributing personnel and resources. Mitchell nodded, studying the massive holographic display that dominated the command center. Unlike the elegant, curved interfaces preferred by alien species, the human display was brutally functional: all sharp angles, bright colors, and clear data streams. It showed the current state of human space, a rough sphere approximately 50 light-years across, containing humanity's 43 colonized systems. What about industrial output? She asked. The civilian shipyards have been completely converted to military production, Davis continued. We're currently building ships at twice the rate we maintained during the Galactic Defense Force era. The difference is, we're not building according to alien specifications anymore. That was the key difference, and everyone in the command center knew it. For decades, human military technology had been designed to integrate with alien systems, to complement alien tactics, to follow alien rules of engagement. The ships had been elegant, efficient, and utterly unsuited for the kind of warfare humans naturally excelled at. The new ships were different. Brutal, angular vessels built around the principle that anything could be turned into a weapon given sufficient motivation. They carried twice the armor of equivalent alien designs, packed fusion charges alongside traditional weapons, and were designed with the explicit assumption that ramming was a valid tactical option. "Show me the Nexary response," Mitchell ordered. The display shifted, revealing the current position of Nexary forces. For the first time since the war began, they had stopped advancing. The massive biomechanical fleet that had steamrolled through 12 different species was now consolidating its position, apparently trying to understand what had just happened at Omega 7. Intelligence reports indicate significant confusion in their command structure, reported Major Chen, no relation to Commander Zara Chen, though the Admiral had made sure to honor the Omega 7 hero by promoting several officers who shared her name. "They've never encountered an enemy that fights like us." "Of course they haven't," Mitchell said with grim satisfaction. "Every other species fights to preserve their civilization, their culture, their way of life. They fight defensively, trying to minimize losses while maintaining their existing order." She gestured at the tactical display, where human ships were moving in patterns that would horrify any alien tactical officer. Instead of the carefully orchestrated formations favored by other species, human vessels operated in loose, aggressive clusters designed to maximize damage output while accepting heavy casualties. "But humans fight to win," Mitchell continued. "We don't care about preserving the existing order because we've always been outsiders anyway. We fight like cornered animals because that's exactly what we are, the species nobody expected to survive, let alone thrive." A new signal appeared on the communications board. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Outer Rim," the communications officer announced. "It's from the Zephyrian refugee fleet." "Put it through," Mitchell ordered. The holographic display shifted to show the image of High Commander Thelvas, leader of the Zephyrian Empire's military forces. The insectoid alien's usually perfect composure was notably absent, replaced by what could only be described as desperate confusion. "Admiral Mitchell," Thelvas began, his translator rendering his chittering speech into precise English. "We have been monitoring human communications and battle reports from the Alpha Centauri region. We must discuss the possibility of renewed cooperation against the Nexary threat." Mitchell exchanged glances with her staff. After 3 weeks of radio silence from their former allies, suddenly, the aliens wanted to talk. "High Commander," Mitchell replied formally. "I was under the impression that your forces had retreated to the galactic rim to establish defensive positions." "Yes, well." Thelvas's mandibles clicked nervously. "Circumstances have evolved. We have received disturbing intelligence about Nexary fleet movements. They appear to be regrouping for a major offensive, possibly targeting human space directly." "Let them come," Mitchell said simply. The alien commander's reaction was visible even across species barriers. His compound eyes widened, and his antennae twitched in agitation. "Admiral, perhaps you do not understand the scale of the force they are assembling. Our estimates suggest over 3,000 ships, including several of their largest biovessels. This is far beyond what any single species can handle." "High Commander, perhaps you don't understand what you're talking to," Mitchell replied. "You've spent the last 3 weeks watching your enemy regroup while you argued about evacuation procedures and honor codes. We've spent the last 3 weeks preparing for total war." She gestured to Colonel Davis, who began transmitting updated tactical data to the Zephyrian fleet. "These are the current specifications for our new Revenge-class destroyers," Mitchell continued. "Notice that they carry no escape pods. No crew recreation areas. No diplomatic facilities. They exist for exactly one purpose, to close with the enemy and destroy them, regardless of cost." Thelvas studied the transmitted data, his compound eyes reflecting growing amazement. "Admiral, these ships appear to be, how do you say, death traps. The crew survival rates in combat are irrelevant," Mitchell interrupted. "The only relevant statistic is enemy casualty rates. And I can guarantee you that every human ship will take at least 3 Nexary vessels with it when it dies." The truth was more complex than that, but Mitchell wasn't about to explain human military psychology to an alien who had just spent 3 weeks running away from a fight. Humans didn't actually have a death wish, they simply approached warfare from a fundamentally different perspective than every other species in the galaxy. Other species fought wars like chess matches, carefully maneuvering pieces to achieve strategic objectives while preserving as many units as possible. Humans fought wars like boxing matches, accepting damage in order to deliver devastating counterattacks. Perhaps we could coordinate our forces, Thelvas suggested hopefully. The Zephyrian bioships could provide support for your aggressive tactics. No, Mitchell said flatly. Admiral, surely you understand that cooperation would. Hi Commander, let me explain something to you, Mitchell interrupted. For the past 6 months, we fought according to your rules, your tactics, your strategies. We held back our most effective weapons because you considered them barbaric. We accepted casualties protecting your evacuation routes while you debated the finer points of interspecies law. We followed your command structure even when it led to obvious tactical disasters. The alien commander's antennae drooped slightly. Around the human command center, staff officers watched the exchange with expressions ranging from professional interest to barely concealed hostility. The result, Mitchell continued, was the complete collapse of the Galactic Defense Force and the near extinction of a dozen species. So no, ma'am, was it wise to antagonize our former allies? Even if we don't want their direct assistance, having them as enemies. They're not going to become enemies, Mitchell said with confidence. They're going to become observers. Every species in this galaxy is going to watch what happens when the Nexari attack human space, and they're going to learn something important about us. Which is? That we're not one of them, Mitchell replied. We never were, and we never will be. For 40 years, we've been trying to fit into galactic civilization, to prove that humans could be responsible members of an interspecies community. Well, the interspecies community just abandoned us to die, so now they get to. That's larger than any single engagement in the war so far. Mitchell studied the tactical display as red icons began populating the edge of human space. 400 Nexari ships, enough to crush any normal military force, probably enough to sterilize several star systems. The aliens were apparently done being cautious. Time to intercept? At current speed, they'll reach the inner system in approximately 6 hours. And our response force? Colonel Davis consulted his tablet. We have 67 combat-ready vessels in the Proxima system, plus approximately 200 civilian. No retreat, no surrender, no quarter given or expected. Ma'am, Operation Pyrrhic Victory has a projected casualty rate of 95%, Davis warned. I know, Mitchell replied. But it has a projected enemy casualty rate of 100%. Around the command center, her staff began implementing the order with grim efficiency. Operation Pyrrhic Victory was exactly what its name suggested, a battle plan designed to inflict maximum damage on the enemy regardless of cost to human forces. It involved tactics that no other species would consider because they prioritized victory over survival. Open a channel to all human forces, Mitchell commanded. The communications array activated, carrying her image and voice to every human ship and station within 50 light-years. This is Admiral Mitchell, speaking to all human military and civilian personnel, she began. Long-range sensors have detected a major Nexari offensive heading toward our territory. This is the moment we've been preparing for, the moment when humanity stands alone against an enemy that seeks to destroy not just our civilization, but every trace of intelligent life in the galaxy. She paused, looking directly into the camera with the kind of absolute conviction that could only come from someone who had already accepted the cost of victory. I won't lie to you about the odds, she continued. We are outnumbered. The enemy has superior technology and superior firepower. By any rational analysis, we should be negotiating terms of surrender. Through the viewports of New Geneva Station, she could see human ships moving into attack formation, cargo haulers retrofitted with fusion charges, mining vessels loaded with military ordnance, sleek military craft designed around the principle that offense was the best defense. But humans have never been particularly rational, Mitchell said, echoing Commander Chen's words from 3 weeks earlier. We're the species that conquered our own world despite being smaller and weaker than most of the predators we competed with. We're the ones who decided that the ocean wasn't too big to cross and space wasn't too vast to explore. And now we're going to show this galaxy what that kind of insane determination looks like when it's applied to warfare. The tactical display showed Nexari forces continuing their approach toward human space. 400 biomechanical nightmares, each one capable of destroying entire cities, moving with the inexorable confidence of a species that had never been seriously challenged.
The Nexari think they understand war, Mitchell continued. They think it's about superior technology and overwhelming force.
They think victory goes to whoever can bring the most ships and the biggest guns to the battlefield. She gestured toward the tactical display, where human forces were arranging themselves in patterns that would have horrified any alien tactical officer. They're about to learn that war isn't about technology or numbers, she said.
War is about will. War is about who's willing to pay the highest price for victory.
War is about who refuses to quit when everyone else has given up. The first Nexari scouts were entering the outer edge of the Proxima system, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with malevolent energy as they probed for defensive positions.
So let them come, Mitchell concluded. Let them bring their superior technology and their overwhelming numbers.
Let them throw everything they have at us. Because they're about to discover that the one thing their technology can't overcome, the one thing their numbers can't compensate for, is the simple fact that humans don't know how to surrender. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. Around the station, human crews prepared for what might be the final battle of their species' existence. In the distance, the first flashes of weapons fire began to light up local space as human scouts engaged Nexari advance elements.
The second battle of human space was about to begin.
6 months after the second battle of human space, the galaxy had a new dominant species.
It wasn't supposed to happen that way.
Every analysis, every tactical projection, every strategic calculation had predicted the complete annihilation of human forces within hours of the Nexari assault. Even the most optimistic human commanders had expected nothing more than a Pyrrhic victory that might buy time for civilian evacuations. Instead, humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not merely defeated an apparently superior enemy, they had completely broken them. Fleet Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, humanity's newest and most powerful warship, watching through the massive viewport as the last Nexari stronghold burned. The biomechanical installation, which had once been the size of a small moon, was now an expanding cloud of debris and dying energy signatures. Final casualty reports, Admiral, Captain Reeves announced, consulting his tablet with the professional satisfaction of a man who had just watched humanity's greatest enemy crumble into extinction.
Let me hear it, Vasquez replied, though she already knew the numbers.
She had been monitoring the battle in real time, watching as human forces systematically dismantled the Nexari war machine with tactics that had horrified every observing alien species.
Total Nexari forces eliminated, 100%, Reeves reported.
No survivors detected on any level, ship, installation, or individual. The species appears to be functionally extinct.
Vasquez nodded grimly.
The Nexari had made the mistake of being an existential threat to humanity, and humans had responded with the kind of absolute thoroughness that had once driven saber-toothed cats and Neanderthals to extinction on Earth. When humans decided something needed to die, they were remarkably efficient about making it happen.
And our casualties?
67% of all human military and civilian vessels participating in the campaign, Reeves continued.
Approximately 1.3 million personnel killed in action.
However, enemy casualty ratios remained consistently above 12-1 throughout the entire conflict. The numbers were staggering, but they told the story of humanity's fundamental approach to warfare.
Other species fought to achieve political objectives while minimizing losses. Humans fought to eliminate threats while accepting whatever losses were necessary for complete victory. Status of the observation fleets? All alien forces have maintained their positions at the edge of the system, Reeves replied.
The Zephyrian, Crystalline, and Andromedian fleets are all still present, along with representatives from approximately 30 other species.
Vasquez turned from the viewport to study the tactical display.
At the very edge of sensor range, dozens of alien fleets hung in space like scavengers waiting for the battle to end. They had been there for months, watching in fascinated horror as humanity systematically exterminated the most dangerous threat the galaxy had ever known.
Have any of them attempted to communicate? Multiple requests for diplomatic contact, ma'am. The Zephyrians have been particularly insistent. Vasquez could imagine.
For 6 months, the various alien species had watched humanity wage total war with an efficiency and brutality that challenged every assumption they had about civilization, warfare, and the nature of intelligent life itself. "Put me through to the fleet commanders," she ordered. The communications array activated, transmitting her image to ships throughout the human fleet. But, unlike the desperate transmissions of 6 months ago, this time she was speaking to the victors. Humanity had faced extinction and had responded by making their enemies extinct instead. "This is Admiral Vasquez to all human forces," she began.
The Nexari threat has been eliminated. Repeat, the Nexari threat has been completely eliminated. Long-range sensors confirm no remaining biomechanical signatures anywhere within our operational area.
Around the fleet, human ships hung in space like predators that had just finished feeding. Many showed signs of heavy damage, scorched hulls, jury-rigged repairs, sections sealed off due to battle damage. But they were all still there, still functional, still ready for whatever came next. "I want to take a moment to acknowledge what we've accomplished," Vasquez continued. "6 months ago, every other species in the galaxy wrote us off. They evacuated their forces, abandoned their positions, and left humanity to face the Nexari alone. They expected us to be extinct within days." She gestured toward the debris field that had once been the Nexari's final stronghold, where biomechanical technology that had terrorized a dozen species was now nothing more than cooling wreckage.
"Instead, we have achieved total victory. Not a negotiated settlement. Not a strategic stalemate. Complete, absolute, final victory over an enemy that had never been defeated. The Nexari came to our space expecting to add humanity to their collection of extinct species. Instead, they became extinct themselves." A new contact appeared on the tactical display, a small, fast ship approaching under a flag of truce. The sensor officer quickly identified it as a Zephyrian diplomatic vessel. "Ma'am, we're receiving a priority transmission from High Commander Thelvas," the communications officer announced. On screen, Vasquez ordered. The holographic display shifted to show the familiar image of the Zephyrian commander, though he looked significantly more disheveled than he had 6 months ago. His usually perfect composure was completely absent, replaced by what could only be described as barely controlled terror. "Admiral Vasquez," Thelvas began, his translator struggling to render the emotional undertones in his chittering speech. "On behalf of the Galactic Council in exile, I must request immediate audience to discuss the current situation." "What current situation would that be, High Commander?" Vasquez asked with deceptive calm.
The complete elimination of the Nexari species," Thelvas replied, his antennae twitching nervously. "And the implications of your methods?" Vasquez exchanged glances with her staff. For 6 months, alien observers had watched humanity wage war with tactics that violated every convention of civilized warfare. They had seen human crews deliberately crash their ships into enemy positions. They had watched civilian volunteers load their cargo holds with military explosives and detonate themselves in the middle of enemy formations. They had observed human commanders sacrifice entire fleets to eliminate key targets.
"Our methods were effective," Vasquez replied simply. "Admiral, your forces have demonstrated capabilities that..." Thelvas paused, apparently struggling with the translator.
"Your species has shown a capacity for warfare that exceeds all previously known parameters. The Galactic Council requires assurance that humanity does not intend to expand its operational objectives."
There it was. The real reason for this sudden diplomatic outreach.
The aliens had watched humanity exterminate the Nexari with industrial efficiency, and now they were wondering if humans might decide that other species also represented threats that needed to be eliminated. "High Commander," Vasquez said, her voice carrying the kind of absolute authority that could only come from someone who commanded the most powerful military force in known space, "let me be very clear about humanity's current position." She gestured toward the tactical display, where human ships continued to patrol the debris field, hunting for any sign of surviving Nexari technology. 6 months ago, the Galactic Defense Force collapsed and every alien species in this region fled rather than face the Nexari threat. You abandoned your positions, your responsibilities, and your supposed human allies to save your own civilizations. Thelvas's compound eyes reflected growing discomfort, but he didn't interrupt.
Humanity faced a choice, Vasquez continued.
We could follow your example and retreat to some distant corner of the galaxy, hoping the Nexari would be satisfied with consuming everyone else before they came for us.
Or we could stand and fight.
She turned to look directly into the camera, her expression carrying the same terrifying calm that had characterized human military communications throughout the entire campaign.
We chose to fight.
Not just to defend ourselves, but to eliminate the threat entirely. Because that's what humans do when something threatens our survival. We don't just defeat it, we make sure it can never threaten anyone again. The bridge of the Indomitable fell silent except for the quiet hum of ship systems. Around the fleet, human crews continued their methodical sweep of the area, ensuring that no trace of Nexari technology would survive to threaten future generations. The Nexari are extinct because they made the mistake of trying to extinct us first, Vasquez said. They thought they could treat humanity like just another primitive species to be consumed and converted.
They discovered that humans are not like other species.
A new set of contacts appeared on the tactical display, more alien ships approaching under diplomatic flags. Apparently word of the Nexari's complete elimination was spreading, and every species in the region wanted to establish contact with humanity's new position as the galaxy's apex predator. Now, High Commander, you and your Galactic Council want assurances that we won't turn our attention to eliminating other species, Vasquez continued.
Let me give you those assurances. Thelvas's antennae perked up hopefully.
Humanity has no interest in conquering or exterminating other species, Vasquez said.
We never did.
All we wanted was to be left alone to develop our civilization in peace.
The Nexari threatened that peace, so we eliminated them.
If other species threaten our peace. She let the statement hang in the air for several seconds, allowing its implications to sink in. But, we're not interested in ruling the galaxy, she continued.
We're not interested in imposing human values on alien civilizations.
We're not even particularly interested in revenge against the species that abandoned us when we needed allies.
Relief was visible in the alien commander's posture, but Vasquez wasn't finished.
However, she said, humanity's relationship with the galactic community has fundamentally changed. For 40 years, we tried to prove that humans could be trusted members of an interspecies alliance. We followed alien tactical doctrine, accepted alien oversight of our military operations, and subordinated our natural combat instincts to alien concepts of civilized warfare. She gestured toward the debris field where the Nexari stronghold had been. The result of that approach was the complete collapse of galactic defense and the near extinction of multiple species.
So humans will not be returning to that model. What do you propose instead? Thelvas asked carefully.
Simple, Vasquez replied.
Humanity will handle threats that endanger galactic stability.
We will do so using human methods, without alien oversight or interference, and without regard for alien concepts of proportionate response or civilized warfare. In exchange, we expect other species to stay out of our way and avoid creating new threats for us to deal with. The alien commander's translator made several confused chirping sounds before managing to render his response.
You are proposing to act as what? Galactic police?
No, Vasquez corrected. Police try to arrest criminals and maintain order.
We eliminate threats. Permanently.
Around the bridge, her human crew watched the exchange with professional interest. They had spent 6 months learning that their species was uniquely suited for a particular type of problem solving, and now they were watching their admiral explain that fact to the rest of the galaxy.
Think of it as a service we provide, Vasquez continued. When a threat arises that endangers multiple species or threatens galactic stability, humanity will deal with it. Quickly, efficiently, and permanently.
Other species are free to continue their traditional diplomatic approaches, their committee meetings, their lengthy debates about proportionate response. She smiled, though the expression carried no warmth. But, when those approaches fail, as they inevitably will, humanity will be available to implement more direct solutions.
The implications were clear.
Humanity was offering to serve as the galaxy's ultimate enforcement mechanism, the final option when civilization needed problems solved rather than managed. It was a role that required a species comfortable with absolute solutions and unlimited liability.
And if other species object to our methods? Thelvas asked. Then, they're welcome to handle their own problems, Vasquez replied.
But they don't get to have it both ways. You can't ask humans to solve problems you can't solve yourselves and, then, complain about our methods.
More alien ships continued to arrive at the edge of the system, drawn by reports that the Nexari threat had been completely eliminated. Representatives from dozens of species, all eager to establish diplomatic contact with the galaxy's new apex predator.
There is one more thing, High Commander, Vasquez added. The alien species that evacuated during the Nexari crisis will need to make reparations.
Reparations? Thelvas asked, his translator conveying surprise.
Humanity lost over 1 million people eliminating a threat that endangered everyone, Vasquez explained.
We spent enormous resources building the military infrastructure necessary to achieve total victory.
We did this alone, without alien support, after being abandoned by our supposed allies. She consulted a tablet that Captain Reeves handed her. The preliminary bill for Galactic Defense Services comes to approximately 12 billion standard credits, plus interest. Payment plans can be arranged for species whose economies were damaged by the Nexari threat. The alien commander's compound eyes widened.
12 billion credits? Admiral, that's more than the combined GDP of several star systems.
Yes, and it's considerably less than what it would have cost to rebuild galactic civilization after the Nexari finished consuming it, Vasquez replied. Consider it a bargain. The truth was that humanity didn't particularly need the money. They had captured enough Nexari technology and resources to fund their military expansion for centuries. But the reparations served an important psychological function, establishing that there were consequences for abandoning humanity when the galaxy needed defending. The Galactic Council will need to discuss these proposals, Thelvas said carefully.
The Galactic Council is welcome to discuss whatever they like, Vasquez replied. But humanity is no longer interested in being governed by committee.
We'll handle galactic security our way, and everyone else can adapt to that reality.
The transmission ended with Thelvas's image flickering out, leaving the bridge in contemplative silence.
Through the viewport, the debris field continued to cool, marking the final resting place of a species that had made the mistake of threatening humanity's survival.
Admiral, Captain Reeves asked quietly, do you really think the alien species will accept our new role?
Vasquez turned back to the tactical display, where dozens of alien fleets maintained respectful distances from human forces. For 6 months, they had watched humanity wage total war with a brutality and efficiency that challenged every assumption about civilized behavior. Now they were faced with a choice: accept humanity as the galaxy's ultimate problem solver, or try to find some other solution to the inevitable crises that would emerge in the future.
They don't have much choice, she replied.
For the first time in galactic history, there's a species willing and able to eliminate existential threats permanently. They can work with us, or they can try to handle the next crisis themselves. She gestured toward the debris field where the Nexari stronghold had been. But I think they've seen enough to know which option is more likely to keep them alive. Through the viewport, human ships continued their patrol patterns, methodically ensuring that no trace of the Nexari would survive to threaten future generations. They moved with the confidence of predators who had just proven their dominance, ready for whatever challenges the galaxy might present next. The universe had learned a new truth: when extinction came calling, there was only one species willing to answer with extinction in return. And that species was finally ready to stop pretending to be something it wasn't. Humanity had found its place in the cosmos, and that place was at the top of the food chain.